Okay. Again, I'm going to repeat what Mr. Mechani said. Hello and welcome everyone to this Python conference. Also welcome to my presentation about Python and AWS Lambda. And as the subtitle says, I'm going to try to make it a practical guide on how to do things with AWS Lambda and with Python running on it as well. So this is the agenda for today. I'm not going to try to take too much of your time, so just a little bit about me. Then we will dive into the whole platform as a service or software as a service versus the whole serverless movement that's been happening in the world since maybe 2016 or something like that. And after that comes the good stuff. After that comes the meat of this presentation, which is AWS Lambda. And if you ever attended any of my presentations, you know that I like to include some demos. Unfortunately, 100% of the time, these demos work 60% of the time. So I'm going to cross my fingers for today. I may not going to need some of your fingers as well for this. And we will conclude with the Q&A, as you all know. Okay. Very thirsty. It's too hot. Okay. A little bit about me, but time is short, so I'm a system engineer at Bestseller e-commerce. You probably never heard about us, but we sell clothes online, mostly brands like Jack & Jones, Veromoda only, etc., etc. I do work in a fashion company, but I don't dress as such, so yay, Python all the way. Which makes sense because I really do like Python, and if you want to connect with me or hit me up or whatever, just visit the URL that is shown here. So, you want to run applications, but you don't want to manage infrastructure, right? The holy grail. Well, turns out that this has been possible for a really long time. So there have been many successful companies that have platform as a service or software as a service offerings. Most of the time, these do work well, but not really always. What's good about it is that some of them are hosted online, or as they like to say, in the cloud. Some of them you can also host yourself, such as OpenShift. But are they the silver bullet? Will they let you run your applications without really thinking about infrastructure? What do you think? I misclicked. But yeah, there's something in this water. I don't know what it is. No, because it's a black box. You really have no idea what's running there. There may be databases, there may be caching, there may be whatever, but you can't do anything about it because someone else manages it. If you want to scale, it's limited. It may not be limited, but it's pricey. So again, you cannot scale. If there is API, it's probably crappy, unfinished. Support is slow, but to be honest, this is only based on my experience with Salesforce because this is what we use in Bestseller. Don't tell anyone. Again, did I say it's a black box? You have no idea because you need this API call to work, or your manager wants to hook up some BI solution to just gather all the data and crunch and munch and blah blah blah, but you cannot do it. And then your manager says it's your fault. Well, okay, I told you it's a black box. So, is Lambda the silver bullet? Is Lambda the holy grail? Will Lambda let you run applications without managing your infrastructure? Well, both yes and no, because yeah, it's serverless, it's hosted somewhere else. You don't have to worry about it. But Lambda is going to be the same kind of silver bullet such as these technologies. I don't know if you like MongoDB, I think it's cool. And there was a time when people thought that, yeah, I'm just going to hook up MongoDB to my slow, crappy application and it's going to fix everything. Did it fix everything? Yeah. It most probably did not, because if you don't model your data and if you cannot write queries that are efficient, no technology is going to help you, not even MongoDB. You all know this little guy, right? Super cool. Yes, as well. But did it fix everything? Exactly, because if your application is not really written to be resilient, to run on Docker, to run on Kubernetes or wherever, it's not going to help you. It's just going to be another layer that you need to worry about, that you need to manage, fix. Also, database backups. They are cool, you should have them, but they're not the silver bullet, because if you don't test these backups, if you don't restore them and verify the integrity of them, not going to work. It's crap, right? You may have backups from 2005, but who cares if they don't work? So, Her Majesty Lambda. I've been telling you a lot what Lambda is not, or not really telling about Lambda at all. So what is Lambda? Lambda is a service from AWS, our good lords of the cloud, and it lets you run functions, just really functions, without thinking about servers. Some people like to call it function as a service, but I think this whole as a service is kind of boring and crappy, even though I used 3 terms already. But what is cool about Lambda, at least that's what I think, is that you only pay for the capacity that you use. So when your functions don't run, you don't pay anything. It's just there, sitting idly, and it's cheap. So, but when your functions do run, what good guys at AWS like to do is they bill you on the sub-second. Sorry. They bill you on milliseconds. Rounding up to the closest 100 milliseconds. So for example, if your function runs for 780 milliseconds, you're going to be billed for 800, which is also super cool. I may have forgotten to say, but Lambda is super scalable. When I say super, it means that for every request, there's going to be a new function spawned, a new function taking load on it. And you don't really have to think about scaling, but also you might think about downscaling, because this super scaling may be a bad thing. And I'm going to come to that later on. So, does it sound cool to you? At least? No one. The best, yes. What my physics professor used to say is, if they're silent, they agree. So just keep them silent. Yep. Sorry. Okay. I also think that Lambda sounds cool, but it will definitely run. It will not run by itself. So something needs to trigger it. It responds to either requests or events from other services, and the good guys at AWS really went out of their way to make it connect with everything. So you can trigger your Lambda functions from S3, which is the storage service. You can also trigger your Lambda by the API gateway, so you can build nice little APIs that scale massively. You can also trigger it by message sources such as SNS, SES, or SQS, meaning that your Lambdas can be triggered by emails received or by messages in the queue or by whatever. So you can definitely mix and match many of these services, combine it with Lambda, combine Lambdas with other Lambdas, and create huge pipelines, massive things. The good guys at AWS will also be very happy about it because they charge you for all of it. But hey, you get to say, I'm using Lambda, I'm super cool. Okay, some of the use cases that I found on the internet or in my head are just listed here. Nothing too complicated, but for example, you can combine S3 with Lambda. And for example, you can resize images as soon as someone uploads them in a specific bucket, or you can do some thumbnail generation. Also, you can, let's say, combine CloudWatch with Lambda, and then you can make your own smart monitoring by Lambda functions, just following logs. And if some exception happened, it's going to trigger something, and then send you a message and wake you up. Then you're going to be like, crap, this again, I did not configure it correctly. Yeah. It can do it. Sorry. One other example that I heard of, and it's a company that's been acquired recently, so they got fat stacks of money. So there's a company in the Netherlands, and it sounds stupid, but people actually pay money for someone to create your photo albums. So what you do, you go on their website, you pay some amount of money, I don't know how much does it cost, and you upload your photos. Yay! And then what they have is they have machine learning mastery inside science, I don't know what it is, which picks your best photos and arranges them in a photo album, and it's all done with S3 and Lambda. And they have been, in the past year, they have been acquired by, I don't know which company, and they had 2,000% of growth. And Lambda just does it. It's 6 people. It's 6 people. And it just works. And one of the numbers that they like to brag about is that they get uploaded. So 100 million photos gets uploaded every day to their service. And it just works. Yep. Okay. What you also can do with Lambda is you can create the holy grail of 2004 or whatever, is the 3-tier web application with database downstairs in the basement or whatever, your Lambda functions having the business logic in them, an API gateway just being the endpoint from where your UI connects or whatnot, and also static files can be served from S3 and CloudFront respectively. So yeah, all of this is still sounds cool, but kolko para? Well, as I said, you only pay for what you use. And there's no idle capacity. You can have 10 million functions. If no one uses them, it's still 0. Also, good guys at AWS are giving 1 million requests to your functions for free. Also 400,000 gigabyte seconds. And a gigabyte second is something that they came up with completely. And it's the number that you get when you multiply the memory that is assigned to your function by its duration. So I would say it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, or as we like to say in Serbian, it's not going to cost Boga oca. And for example, if your function uses 512 megs of RAM, so this is just a function, this is not a VM. So just think how huge or how inefficient a function needs to be to consume 512 megs of RAM. And if you execute it 1 million times, 6 zeros, 1 million times, and each run takes 3 seconds, which is a lot, it's going to cost you $18. 18 bucks. $18 for 1 million executions. And each execution takes 3 seconds. But 3 seconds is a lot of time. If your function takes 3 seconds, it's either really big or slow. Yes, there's no third option. And if you punch all these numbers into a calculator, it's 34 hours of execution. So that's really something, and you get that for $18. Okay, in the beginning I mentioned a demo, and these are some stats about the demo that I created. To be honest, it's only one function. It's pretty inefficient. So for its duration, it's 1.2 something seconds. And I usually get billed for 1.3 seconds. Sorry. It has 128 megs of memory assigned to it, which is the bare minimum that you can do, but it only uses 39, so yay! And it costs me nothing, so if you guys just went ahead and just clicked million times on it, it's not gonna cost anything, because the good guys at AWS have a lot of free requests and free data included in the free tier. Okay, so for the practical part, I would say that logging is one of the foundations of a good application. You really want to log, you want to be crazy about it, you want to know what's going on. Because when it wakes you up at 3:35, you don't want to do any archaeology, you don't want to debug, you don't want to be bothered by it. You just want to read a line that says, this crapped out, this died. So for logging with Lambda, you can always print. It will just, whatever you print, it will be included into the CloudWatch logs. Or you can use Python's built-in logging using the logging module. Yeah, so all the info and exception and every other method, it just works. So both of these examples are kind of the same, even though the right one will give you, I would say, better logs, because it includes a timestamp. Okay. One other thing that you need to do in order to be able to log with Lambda is to give it permission, because the function on itself or the service on itself cannot do much. So you need to use IAM, which is the AWS service that allows you to grant permissions to other services or users or groups or whatever. And by using this, we are, or I am basically allowing my Lambda function to perform all actions on the logs, allowing it to log. Yay! Okay, there are some limits definitely when it comes to Lambda because it is not all powerful, although it is pretty powerful. So the amount of memory that you can allocate to your functions ranges from 128 to 1.5 gigs. Whenever your function runs, and I did not mention this before, it always gets a temporary space of 512 megs, so you can use it as a scratch space. It's gonna be deleted afterwards, but you can use it. The maximum number of threads, I mean, you can all read, it's 1024 threads, and the maximum execution time is 5 minutes. But again, if your function runs for 5 minutes, it's just, you're doing something wrong. Also, concurrent executions is limited to 1000 per region or per account or something like that. But you would really like to tweak this number because what people can do is, if your function is open, they will not DDoS you, but they will incur cost. They will just tap, execute your function, and the bill is just gonna go up and up and up. So you should really decrease this. Okay, demo time. As I said, almost always fails.
In the meantime, if the Microsoft buys AWS too, what will you do?
What am I going to do? Well, no. But also they do have something similar, right? There's many of these function as a service offerings. I think you can do the same thing on Kubernetes, kubeless or something, maybe not. Either way, so when I applied to give a talk at this presentation, Maya contacted me and said, okay, well, do you have anything in your presentation that relates to cryptocurrencies or Bitcoins or blockchain or whatever? And I said, no. And then she was super excited. Yay, it's going to be the conference without ever mentioning the blockchain. So I'm not going to mention the blockchain, even I just said blockchain 7 times. But for this demo, it felt easy. So I just built a cryptocurrency converter. There's of course, a service online that does this. So I just copied everything, including the UI. Theirs is better, but hey. So this is just a static file, and it's hosted in S3. It's an HTML file. There's some JavaScript, but Python conference. And there's a Lambda function behind it. So the JavaScript will just send an AJAX request. Lambda function will do something, and of course, return the result. So fingers crossed again. So let me check to convert. I don't know how many. How many Bitcoins do you have? 7, 8? -3. It doesn't allow to go. Okay. Let's say that you have 7 and you want to know how much, I don't know, Bitcoin Cash it's worth. Works. Yes. That's the 60%. Someone had their fingers crossed except me. Thank you. Yes. So this demonstration consists of 2 flows, so to call them. So what I have is I have a CloudWatch trigger, which is basically a cron-like trigger. And I also have a Lambda function. And every 5 minutes, this Lambda function gets triggered. It goes to the external API of some crypto market, I don't know which. And it gathers data on how each coin is worth, how much each coin is worth, and then saves the data into an S3 bucket, the same one where everything lives. The second part is built in Chalice, and it's, if you never heard of it, Chalice is a really cool thing. It's basically Flask on steroids. It's Flask for AWS Lambda. Looking at code is boring, but I wanted to showcase how similar it is to Flask. I mean, you can almost recognize, you can almost import from Flask, you can import app, but here you from Flask import Chalice and create the routes and everything, blah, blah, blah. And this is how the second flow of data looks. So you have a browser that connects to an S3 bucket, which shows the HTML and the lovely CSS built by my wife. Thank you. And When you trigger this function, it goes to an API gateway, which you have where a Lambda function lives behind it. It does some calculation, of course, returns the result, and we get everything shown. So, any questions? Any remarks? Any cabbages to be thrown at me? No? Thank you.
So based on your experience, this is okay. Okay. So based on your experience, if you would have to compare or re-implement small REST service in AWS Lambda, would you go down the path having, for example, one function that routes internally to different endpoints, or would you have multiple Lambda functions with API gateway proxying, and how would you battle complications within the space of instead of having one single source, now you have 7 or n separate functions you have to deploy separately and manage endpoints and proxying in totally different space and not in a code base, etc. Do you have experience in that area? What's the best approach, best practice, whatever?
Not much experience, to be honest, because we use it kinda in the company, but not too much. But I would definitely go the API gateway route, because it's a managed service, it scales like hell, and you don't have to think about many things such as DDoS. But again, this company that I mentioned before that does photo albums, they needed something more. They weren't really satisfied with what API Gateway offers, and also there's another service called Step Functions, which you can input some logic into the whole flow, and they built their own thing. They did exactly what you did, what you asked about. They have a simple Lambda function that then spawns other Lambda functions, scales them based on some input, blah blah blah. But to be honest, I don't have any experience with managing this at scale. We have maybe 5 or 10 functions per environment, so not much. Nije strašno. Meni jeste, ali dobro. Okay, if that's everyone, I really thank you for your time and enjoy the conference.